and welcome to part 4 of our conversation, Choose Your Canada. If you're just tuning in and catching this program for the first time, there are 3 parts that came before this. You can find them all on our VOD platform, Corco Plus. Anything that you like on Miracle Channel, anything, and a lot of other content, kids content, a ton of movies. There is so much great stuff that we are producing, original programs that's coming from us. It's only on Corco Plus, so make sure you go and find that that way. Right now, we're going to be diving in and finishing up a conversation that we had with Leon Fontaine, Jeff Thiessen, as well as David Leese. He's from the Frontier Center for Public Policy, a conservative think tank that they pretty much are just inundated with what's happening in Canada. We've got a conversation talking about what's happening in our universities, what's happening in our economy, what does good leadership look like, what path is Canada headed down, what can we learn from history and apply to where Canada should go. What is Canada founded on? All these things we want to educate and help you as the viewer, as a citizen of Canada, to be educated on what's happening. You need to know the issues. You need to be aware of what's going on. You need to know how what's going on so you can vote according to your conviction and who you want to vote for. We here at Miracle Channel are trying our best to make people get up, go out and vote, be active, be a great citizen of Canada. Our job as citizens is to let our voice be heard so government can represent us. This conversation was so fascinating. I feel like we could have gone for hours and hours on it. Again, there's 3 parts before this, but we're going to be diving in right now to part 4, so hope you guys enjoy the conversation.
Frontier, tell me a little bit about it. What can people do to learn? Because you have invested your life in something here. Why? Why do you see that so important? And go ahead and just put in a plug.
Okay.
I want to hear it.
Well, that's a very kind question. Well, the Frontier Center for Public Policy is really about better ideas for a better tomorrow. Again, it sounds so rhetorical, but really the idea of a think tank is to have special groups or teams of people try to think through different policy areas and say, how do we advocate for policy that best serves and empowers people? Yeah. And I think if there's an example, so it's nonpartisan, but the idea is to think through based on good empirical evidence and analysis, what will serve society the best. So a good example of that is actually one of our patrons, an advisor, Sir Roger Douglas. And Peter Hawley, the Chief Administrative Officer, the President of Frontier, had an interesting relationship with Sir Roger Douglas. He was the finance minister when New Zealand, of all places, in the 1980s, was almost going to go under. It was the over expenditures. There was really a crisis of faith in the New Zealand government about what to do. And to the credit of Sir Roger and others, they worked to reconfigure the government to better serve the people, to empowerment. It was actually a Labour government that did this. It wasn't a Conservative government at the time. It was a Labour government that said, how do we improve the education system? They even changed the relationship with the Maori people to do the great buyout scheme to empower them to be much more entrepreneurial. And it's been very successful. I think, frankly, it's a model for our country. Because how do you, you can't just continue on forever just paying out. You've got to say, how do we enable people to be full functioning, proud societies? And so I think that's one of our models that we would look to. And the whole idea has been to advocate for better education and healthcare, to better serve people in the area of policing. One of the issues we're very concerned about is environmental policy. Of course we want clean water and air, but how do we also do that in a sensible way that you make choices that doesn't also shut down our society? Right. And are green technologies actually green, or is someone making a lot of money behind it? So you have to be able to ask those incisive questions with courage, but also in a discerning manner that tries to serve people.
I want to dive into every one of the things he just said, but we'll put on the screen how to get a hold of, because there is videos and papers and they can get involved in a way to help you. So We'll put that on
It's
the
incredibly
screen.
educational. I've
Yep.
used a lot of your guys' resources, even just some of the stuff we've been planning. I just want to say it's a credit to our country, all the stuff that you guys are doing. I think that a lot more people need to dive into
Yeah.
that
Well,
information that's available.
well, thank you. And it's amazing, you know, the kind of people that are involved with Frontier don't come from just one particular background. They come from right across the country with all the spirit of saying, you know what, there's got to be a better way to build this widget. And what would that be? And so we continue to learn an awful lot, and we so much appreciate people's feedback. But it's not easy because there's a lot of areas where people have staked out and said, oh, you can't talk about that. Well, really? That actually makes us even more curious and says, you know what,
Why not?
maybe we need to say, why not? Remember that? Somebody's always said, you can't do this. We would say, why not?
I wanted to talk about Afghanistan. When you said that, I was like,
I wanted to dive into that
Well, there's
too.
a whole stream to Afghanistan, and I think people would be shocked by the background.
I think we're into that now for the next 20 years. I don't think this is I don't think we're out. I think we're back in.
Yeah. Well, and it's just what a tale of mission creep.
Yeah, I was getting some of these things through credible people saying they're about to behead all these missionaries. Then someone said, just a minute, that thing is not true. That specific one of 200 and whatever it was they said. But then I'm reading again today from some other people, they're going, there's bad things happening there right now to the missionaries. I just don't have any credible witnesses from countries nearby, or I don't, and it's just like,
Well, and it's really hard to have credible information. Like Afghanistan, people think through the lens of Canada. It's not a nation state as we know it. It's really a nation of 30 tribes. And then there's a loose federation. And its culture is so much different. People don't understand how different it really is.
but you can't be in agreement with Biden walking out and leaving all these tanks and
No,
jeeps. And
no.
That happened, didn't it?
No, and there's different theories about what happened. There was, to the Trump administration's credit, a conditional withdrawal plan. If you do this, we'll do that. And they demonstrated, I don't know if people realize this, but the scale and scope of the elimination of ISIS caliphate was breathtaking. And it's because they got rid of all the rules of engagement that the previous administration handcuffed the military on. So you can't fight a war on the ground through somebody who's like 6,000 miles away. You have to enable and empower commanders on the field to do their job, and that's what they didn't do. So when they did do that, it's amazing what they accomplished. In Afghanistan, it was very similar. They had very tough rules of engagement on soldiers. And these are just from friends of mine that were commanders on the field, right? So, and that varied from allied country to country. But what we do know is that you don't just pull out of a country. That's irresponsible and quite frankly begs serious questions about why would you do that?
Yes.
I think it was a photo op. I think he wanted to have
Yeah.
September 11th to say, I had the courage.
Right.
I'm the only one who
Yeah.
ever has had the
Yeah,
courage.
you wonder.
I finally made it, and it's September 11th. I'm out after 20 years. And it was just an incredible photo op that he was going to seize that moment on, and it just backfired.
So what's Canada doing on that? Like, I know Trudeau said we're going to take people in, but like,
Yeah.
what are we actually
Well, I
doing?
think that's why the Prime Minister's really, quite frankly, vulnerable on this one. I think it begs the question around what has been the working relationship within that context and how we've safeguarded people, including Canadians. There's a lot of Canadians on the ground there. And I don't think we have a hot clue about how many we have.
What do you mean by a lot?
I would say probably several thousand.
Are they like Afghani Canadians? Or,
No, you'd have a lot of aid workers in some cases, yeah.
so their lives are all at risk then.
Absolutely.
So they're there now. They haven't gotten out. There's still
well,
thousands there
to
now.
my knowledge, in some cases, they're still there.
Give us a guess as what you think. It's a guess. How many Canadians do you think are there? In the hundreds or in the thousands?
I would say probably at least over 1,000. Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine it'd be any less. See, part of it is that you have diplomatic personnel. They're all trying to maintain embassy staffs and those external relations functions. How do they maintain those? I don't know.
Where would they go for safety?
To the nearest base, probably Germany.
So there are bases there.
Well, there's certainly a Canadian base. I don't know what the status is on it though.
Not in Afghanistan anymore.
Not anymore.
No, they abandoned those. You
Right.
can see the
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is
for
that
sure. You're
there's
saying
still
the nearest base is Germany.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
thought you meant
no,
in
yeah.
Afghanistan.
No.
Sorry, I thought you
Germany.
meant like see that's the problem. If
So a man and his wife and his kids who's over there trying to feed and whatever he's doing as a missionary or whatever group that he's with.
To my knowledge, they didn't get
Any warning?
well. There were certainly foreshadows of this issue. It was a definitely a live topic, but to what extent they were warned that people would withdraw at this, at this time, I don't believe that happened. And if that's true, that's a big problem.
It's a disaster. My Twitter feed is, this is all personal testimony, but you see journalists, I follow a lot of journalists from all across the political spectrum. They'll say, I personally know this person who's there, and they're messaging me saying they don't have anywhere to go.
Right.
They're fearing for their life night in, night out type of. And I see that all the time. It's so common right now because they missed the boat to get out or didn't have a boat.
Yeah. So as commercial airliners come in, maybe that will change the mix. But I don't know how you protect the perimeter of an airport. As I recall, that's why I would never have given up that main base. Right?
Missiles.
Anyways, there's just all these basic questions. They're basically common sense questions.
They are. And so no one's answering them from the American side?
No.
It's just a big old...
Yeah. But, knowing the appointments on that administration side, it begs the question, why were they appointed? Well,
yeah.
So just because you're appointed in those roles doesn't mean you're necessarily competent.
Isn't that
Again,
the truth?
who's serving whom is the question.
Again, that kind of even goes back to the woke culture of.
Right.
I'm talking about businesses earlier and jumping in on it. That's almost the same way that some these appointees have been appointed because they have to fulfill a certain mandate
for the last
of
8 months,
representation.
Their focus has been on trying to wokeify the military. That seems to have
Yeah.
been their focus.
Yeah, isn't that true? They were going to teach you. It is crazy.
Not how to get out of Afghanistan properly, right?
We have so felt that we are creating new forms of television programs just from the purpose of bringing the whole truth to people in a way that isn't going to be shut down or silenced, just so that people can say, hey, where can we go to get the whole truth on some of these things?
Yeah, and it is confusing because, I've had the, I almost chuckle about I've had the pleasure of studying this stuff for so many years. I'd never believed that it would become more mainstream. But all these ideologies, e.g. faith, has its own kind of internal logic. And so when people like ourselves are maybe observing a conversation from these individuals, you have to understand their language and understand their internal logic or absurdity, right? So they will look at anything that is said by someone as incredibly suspect just simply because of who said it. It's not based on the merit of what you said, it's based on who said it.
Yeah. So are you talking about here in Canada?
Here in Canada, elsewhere?
So it's almost as though, it is as though we've got to raise up voices. If we can't go to a journalism, if we can't go to a television network in Canada that says this is news, if we can't go there anymore and get the whole truth, then we're going to look for other voices. And there's a void right now that says, who are they?
No, you're absolutely right. And platforms and vehicles to do that messaging. And certainly, it's interesting, one of our projects that we're looking at doing, there's a whole series of them, is doing a systematic audit across Canada of not only schools of education, but schools of journalism. Because if you look at, say, kind of a high-performing index of education, you'd say if you look at all these different variables, like who's doing the teaching, what they're teaching, they all reveal the story. And then you connect the dots and say, well, these are not journalists, they're activists.
Right.
And that is their worldview. Their perspective is not to produce a journalist who looks carefully at the pros and cons of an issue and tell that story accurately to the audience, but rather it's to advance a particular viewpoint of what the good society looks like. That's very different.
The end always justifies the means
Right,
for
exactly.
them.
Yeah.
Well, we've gotten in a habit now of just whenever an article is sent over, it's like, who wrote it? A lot of times we don't even take that next step of who wrote it and maybe what angle are they coming at it from.
I think the thing that surprises me, and it shouldn't, but the depth of answers that are out there but there's no way to be broadcast to a nation.
Right.
The level of intelligence to solve this, but that person, Redmond on your show, that person can't even get an
He
audience.
should have had a platform as big as the Great Outdoors. When the COVID hit, it should have just been out there.
Yeah, no, and it is something because, I mean, David's a good friend, very honorable gentleman, lieutenant colonel. He served 8 foreign missions.
Wow.
Yeah,
Got quite the
serious guy.
resume.
When people, there, I read this article about presidents, and the very first president to do a debate was a president, John
Kennedy
F.
and
Kennedy,
Nixon.
and how quickly he swung everything around because of what he looked like and how he conducted himself and carried himself. I'm not going to go either way whether he was the right guy or not. He was a great, I guess, good president. But from that day and on, a whole new science came to politics. It wasn't you were a general who had an incredible track record and tens of thousands of your men respected you in battle and you wouldn't back down and you cared and you know, that was a kind of, it was like, how good are you on TV? And it created a whole new, and everyone I talk to now, I just say, hey, if you've got somebody that's going into politics, teach them how to talk, teach them how to get in front of a camera, teach them how to do all these things. Why? Because those are the skills that people.
Well, you recall the famous quote, and it's a profound principle by the Canadian thinker, Marshall McLuhan, who said the message is the medium. So television created a medium that was extraordinary, and then you become the message through that medium. I'll never forget a friend of mine, his name is Barry McLaughlin, and he has been an advisor in a number of different campaigns, including with the then Senator John McCain and with a guy named Barack Obama. And I remember Barry telling me during these debates that it would always just make John McCain go nuts when Obama, who had really not a lot of background and experience, but he was a very good communicator, would debate Senator John McCain, who had arguably a lot more background, and I'm not necessarily a fan of John McCain. But what Barry tried to explain is you have to think about a pie chart. About 70% of your perceived credibility as a politician when you communicate is your tone. Can you communicate well a sincere, genuine care for people? And again, I don't mean to sound manipulative or whatever like that, but it's true because these issues are complex. So if somebody thinks that you actually really care about them, they'll put their vote with you because like you're going to trust them. So you're going to laugh. So my first campaign slogan, which I used for all my 3 elections, and this came out of my focus group that I had together, an advisory group, was he cares enough to work hard enough.
It's great. Love it.
Who knew?
Wow.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. I was on a television program in the States. And so we're doing this. It's a green room after we're on, you know, and we're talking about leadership. And this one guy's absolutely in love with Obama. And so I was intrigued by this. And I didn't, you know, and he likes me. We liked each other. We love each other. We value each other. And so I just looked at him, and we're having lunch and supper after, we're talking, and I said, okay, would you just tell me the things that he did for your country?
Oh, very good question.
That's all I said. And he couldn't list one. Couldn't list one. And so I'm joshing him because he's a friend. I'm going, come on, just give me one. We're just doing like this. And then he got so serious. And he looked at me and he said, because he's the coolest looking president we've ever had.
Okay.
And that was done.
All right. So he was proud of him.
He was so, I didn't even know how to wrap that one up.
Yeah, isn't that something?
Isn't that something?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that fascinates me about Barack Obama, and I don't know him, but he was someone who was an adept communicator that kind of came out of the blue, but he did come out of the state of Illinois. Illinois is by and large, all part of the Democrat machine. So that said something. But what's interesting is that he was a community organizer, and he knew a guy named Saul Alinsky well, who was a superb tactician. and thinker. I don't know if you know the works of Saul Alinsky, but a lot of that is a playbook that we see every day now.
Do you think Trudeau uses it?
Oh yeah, there's definitely circles of people there that would play by that book. One of Saul Alinsky's principles, if you look at the book 12 Rules for Radicals, it would be personalize your opponent, attack them, right? Don't talk about the issue.
Yep.
Personalize the opponent. I mean, these are all classic playbooks. So I don't want to vilify Saul Alinsky because I do, who knows him. But what I do know is that this is used all the time.
They sure did a very good job of that with Scheer. They basically positioned him
That's right.
as an abortionist
Right.
or anti-abortionist, and just carved out a spot for him, which wouldn't work in the Canadian politics.
Well, there's an attempt, it feels like, being made right now, probably in the last 24 hours, of just trying to paint the other Conservative Party,
Aaron O'Toole.
Aaron O'Toole, of not being for our current healthcare system, trying to manipulate or change or privatize this to a certain. They're trying to paint that picture, which is it's just
Attack
classic
him
blue.
personally, yeah,
About that.
as well.
There's always the age-old tactic that you accuse your opponent of exactly the wrongdoing that you yourself are doing.
Yes.
How many times have we seen that?
Yeah.
I mean, you almost have to have a sense of humor in this stuff, but you also have to have a backbone of steel to take this stuff on.
Yes.
And again, it's not for the faint of heart.
It isn't. It is just, if there's one thing you can hate or love Trump, it doesn't matter where you go, but to watch him just get up,
Right.
boom, just take it and dish it out.
That's right.
I think was good for a lot of people who are great leaders, but they lack this one thing, a backbone of steel. And to take the onslaught, to take
Because,
the hits.
and I would say that's one of the things that came up in focus groups around his presidency was kind of a respect and an appreciation that somebody who was so well off, who didn't have to do this, and would go through that kind of meat grinder, that would go through that kind of difficult journey, would end up doing that and donate their whole salary away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So why were they doing this? Well, he would say, well, I'm trying to serve the people. And probably in many ways that's the case, rightly or wrongly, right?
Yeah. That one line we said earlier is that the only difference between a leader and a manipulator is motive. And there's just no way to know someone's motive a lot of times, except for a little bit of time.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And so
So if you could, each one of you, I'm interested in maybe one sentence, what is the biggest thing that you're concerned about our country and the future of our country right now? If there is a one thing you can pinpoint.
I'll start. I can't say one because the economy is just critical for the future of my grandkid.
Yep.
I am concerned about terrorism now. I wasn't 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
I'd say that coming up is I thought we got past it. I don't think we have. I think that's going to be,
there's no way they're
coming
quiet
up.
for nothing.
So those are my two probably.
Well, what do you think?
Economy is definitely a big
Should
one.
say three.
Yeah, just generally critical theory, I think, just to take one step above CRT, is I think just critical theory, I think that's I'm mid-30s. I'm the very top end of millennial, and Gen Z is below me. We're combined, I know we're the largest voting base in Canada, and I think I've just seen it through friends, family. From my opinion, I feel like it's indoctrinating a lot of people, and also making them lose their ability is the wrong word. They aren't thinking critically anymore. It's just emotionally, in a sense. So I'm concerned for that because I think I forget who said it, and I'm going to probably screw up the quote, but if you can educate a generation, you've stolen the future. There's a line, something along those lines. So that's concerning for me, for sure.
I would tend to agree with David. I think that if we've lost our way to discern and to be wise, then we lose it all. Mm-hmm. Or we potentially gain it all.
Yeah. I would agree with everybody, but if you have to shoot a comment, I would just say, I am concerned that we have to find and raise up leaders. Period, period, period. Because to argue in the trenches and to argue systems and structures and all this stuff is crucial. Everyone needs to start speaking up. But then who can we raise up that people can look to? People need leaders. If there's one thing I've learned, that if they're leaderless, even Jesus said, without sheep, without a shepherd, he wept. It's just like, people need something. They need a leader. And so there's got to be gifted leaders out there that we've got to find, and we've got to raise them, even if it's in linear areas that people can look to and trust inside of organizations. Leaders, we've got to find these leaders. We've got to raise up leaders and have a farm of them from now on, you know what I mean? A school, and just equip them.
You're right.
David, I want to just say thank you for making yourself available to us. We kind of last minute just put out a call. We heard you were close by. If we could just grab you and just do this, just put a cup of coffee in front of us and just talk a little bit. And I'd love to do this again.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if we can help you in any way, I'd love to help each other out that way. I think would be great.
Well, thank you, and blessings to you and all the work that you do as leaders. I certainly admire the kind of work that you do, and it's been a pleasure to be here.
Well, that concludes the full conversation, man. We had a 2-hour conversation broken up over 4 episodes. If you missed any of them, go ahead and watch it on Corco Plus, our VOD platform. This stuff needs to get out to your friends. Tell your family about it. Tell your friends. These conversations are supposed to be had all over the nation, at the kitchen table, with your family and friends. This is what democracy is ideas coming together and working out and talking what's the best way to go. We believe that also as Christians, it's our job that our worldview, our faith does impact our politics. It impacts the direction and how we vote. We want to vote with our conscience. We want to get great leaders in to lead our nation in the way that it was founded on Judeo-Christian principles, where you have freedoms, where you have liberties, the ability to choose, that we can have justice, and we can have all these great things involved in our country. And that's why you need to know what's going on, because sometimes issues can come up that might veer us off the path, or there might be debates or things that's happening. Anyways, Miracle Channel, we are so impassioned to continue to bring content like this to you. If you loved it, if you've got questions, if you want to know more, reach out to us, email us, call us. We would love to get in contact with you. We're going to keep on bringing more content like this, different conversations with great minds across Canada and the US about culture, about what's happening in our nations as well. Anyways, go out and vote. We got an election coming up here shortly. Be educated, talk to your friends about it, and I just believing that you guys are going to have an amazing time as we continue to go and build this great country that we are in. Again, Corco Plus, our VOD platform. You can find all of these episodes on there. Until next time, we'll see you guys then.